says I am live. Whether or not the device wants to agree, we will find out. But if on the basis I am, hello, welcome. Today you have Formula Elite Racing for their 6th season, of course, rebrand of EGRL, and you've got the 6th event out in Zandvoort. Hopefully it will be a great race as per usual, but you've got 16 drivers out on track for hopefully quite a bit of action. If you can hear the clicking of my mouse, it's just as I'm trying to get up the standings for you lot, just to give you as good of a stream as possible, because I've really had little to no time to prepare. But anyways, it looks a bit overcast out here in Netherlands, I assumed it is, but it looks a bit like Mexico. I think I may have gone wrong somewhere. Yes, it's Mexico. Oopsie. My bad. I'll quickly change that title for you all in a second. Probably heard me leave a Discord call. That's delayed by about half a decade, as Cohen is your first driver to go round on an out lap in that Alpine car, as I'm going to quickly edit that title. Don't know what got in my head saying that it was Netherlands, maybe misread the track. I am blind, do excuse. But anyways, there's Cohen going through turn 6, heading down into the main depth of middle sector. Now I've just been informed it is round 5, not 6, so I'll also change that for you lot, just so then it doesn't look like I'm streaming the complete different race. As Cohen will be the first driver to do a fly lap this evening. Hopefully it will be a good race. We never know with events such as this. But now Cohen up towards turn 1, battery being deployed as it's a delayed start to the DRS zone. It's about 300 meters down that main straight. But anyways, Cohen DRS wide open as they go under that F125 branded bridge. Let off their battery deploy and chuck the car through turn 1. Try and keep it all stable as they now go through the remainder of that chicane for turns 2 and 3. DRS wide open again. They now charge their way up towards turn 4, heavy on brakes just after the 100 bollard. It's a 27.7 in the first sector. There's a McLaren just going through 6 and 7 as Cohen has now dropped the ball. That is their lap over and done with, so we will tune in with Hoot for their lap in the Ferrari. I'm still trying to find the standings, so do bear with me. I have now found them, so do not worry, as currently it's Power Twan who is your championship leader in that Red Bull, followed by Thanos, Busy and Laser, who's on 42, 42 and 41 points. Shoot, who is this Ferrari, is on 40 points. That is your top 5, as hopefully Shoot can shoot on target and get a lovely lap on the board to be your banker here today, going through that right hander, working their way up to the start finisher line. Now it looks decent. It's a 15.5 to kickstart this session here today. It's Master Gamer who does a 16.3, and then we can find, I think it's Power Twan, no it isn't, it's in fact Inferno crossing the line to do a 16.1. Then there's a Williams somewhere out on track. They're not on a run. Who's on a run next? I think it's Busy. Yes, it in fact is. As Adam goes to the top of timing chart, it's about 4 tenths quicker than Shoot in that Haas. Fizzy, however, will do a 15.188 to do a fairly decent start for their session. You've got Why Happy about to start their qualifying run in that Mercedes, of course, alongside Master Gamer. Quite level, I'd say. 35 points to 10 in regards to that. Why Happy hasn't done as many races as their more experienced teammates of Master Gamer, but irrespective of that, you can see the young Brit fighting that car, just trying to rein it in going out of turn 3 at the end of the first sector. It's a 28.260 for the Mercedes car. Let's see whether or not he will be able to keep it all clean through the middle sector. We saw, of course, that car fighting in the first few corners. It will be a bit more reckless in the middle part as it's constantly going one way then the other, just trying to keep the throttle pinned now. DRS now wide open as they work their way up towards the final sector, which is your stadium sector, I like to call it, because you do go through that massive stadium, seeing about 100 odd fans just in the space of 3 corners as they all roar you on. Anyways, out of the stadium, up towards the line now for the Mercedes. Try and take a very tight line up to the line. It's a 15.8 to go quicker than their teammate by about 6 or so tenths of a second, as they are not going for another push. I don't really know if there are many others going for another push in this stage either. Most drivers will just be doing that one lap, then going back into the pit lane. But you do have Vilvan in the Haas, who is about to get a lap underway here. They work their way up towards turn 1 now. As from what I see, Burger Boy is meant to be a Haas driver, but he's in a Vitti car. Maybe it's just different colour schemes, who knows. As I think it is V-Card. I'm not familiar with the FGC colour schemes, take it from me. But anyways, Vilvan continuing to work on, DRS wide open, very little use of overtake mode as they work their way up towards turns 4 and 5. Just try and keep the car in its own headspace, keeping it nice and calm as they work their way and manoeuvre themselves around that fairly tricky start to the middle sector. But then the middle sector is just one big test on the drivers, of course, with this Flow S section. You do tend to see a few mistakes as Vilvan will quickly get a bit of that toe out from one of the McLarens. I think that was Thanos. It probably is, regarding Fizzy, is in the pit lane on their way out now as we speak. Vilvan, however, fighting, big slide there on the exit of that final low speed corner. It's a 16.0 for them. We can tune in with Cohen, who did in fact drop the ball in the next corner, which is now coming up, turns 6 and turn 7. He keeps it all clean this time. The Alpine now able to focus up on their charge and continue to push round, maybe try and get a full lap under their belt. As DRS now wide open, they work their way up to the stadium complex once again. It's a decent first 2 sectors. They've gone wide there. They haven't invalidated, so they will just try and finish the lap off, get a time on the board, irrespective of how quick it is. As up to the line, the Alpine will now go. What will it be? It'll be a 15.6 for the Alpine driver. Then next up we can find Elite Silver, who is just tucked in behind their teammate Shoot, as they are both on flyer laps of their own. Hopefully Elite will be able to get dragged along by their teammates, as time is yet to be placed for that Ferrari driver, whereas their teammate currently sitting in 6th. But you can just see how far they've managed to pull away in that middle sector on its own, a good 1.5 seconds, as it's a 57.0 after the first 2 sectors. The Ferrari again going wide, just like Cohen did so on their flyer, but nowhere really near the Alpine's pace round the final corner. They go up towards the line now, and there'll be a 16.8 for Elite Silver. You do have Master Gamer, who is on a flyer as well, just up ahead of the two Ferraris, going through turn 1 now, chucking the car right, then into the left, then really just try and ease it out and get back on throttle. On the exit of turn 3, DRS again wide open under that fancy Louis Vuitton bridge, and then heavy on brakes, turn the car in, nicely does it. And now you can get back on throttle for a brief moment and then tap that brake as you drop down into about second gear once again as a laser gun gets a 5-place grid drop for a collision with the Haas of Adam. As now Master Gamer will continue to charge their way around this middle sector. Whether or not they will be able to keep it all clean, time will tell, because there's still time for a hiccup as they are currently a 10th up from what they're currently setting. It will only be enough for about P14 still as things stand, but if he can find that bit more time, the South African could maybe promote themselves up to 13th over the line, and it will only be 14th. They don't in fact end up improving on a run, as Why Happy rounding out the final corners, 10th and a half up. It'll be 3/10ths up as they go to 7th. Is then going to be Pablo in that Williams, going through that sluggish stadium segment of the lap up towards the line now, fighting the car whenever he gets on throttle, and it's going to be a 16.6. You've got Renz, who isn't on push, but in fact Hugo is. Half a second up in that Sauber car. They work their way up towards the line now. What can Hugo do? It'll only be 4th. It's a 15.281. There's now Burger Boy in that V car. Their teammate currently out of the session, but the secondary V car on their first run of the day. It's a 28.182 after the first sector, and now it's all about just getting the lap under their belt as Ren gets 5-place grid drop for collision with Adam, as Adam has just gone to the top of the timing ladder with a 14.851 after Powertran nicked it for a brief moment with a 15.051. Anyways, Burger Boy after the first two sectors, it's a 56.0, says he's the fastest. The game doesn't truly know, of course, until everyone has a lap on that board, and it must be a valid lap. Otherwise the game will just assume that it will be the fastest. Anyways, up to the line for Burger Boy now. What will it be? It'll be a 15.2 for that V car. Currently the top 12 all split by that second, and still a few moments left of this qualifying session. 6 minutes and ticking away here today. Fizzy on a push lap, 13,000ths improvement in that first sector. You've got that Red Bull of Twan, I believe it was, just getting out of the way on the exit of turn 7, allowing the two McLarens to push on and bide their time with this qualifying session. There's still about 40% of that battery left to deploy, which they are in fact doing now as they work their way up to the stadium. 65,000ths up in that McLaren now. Could there be the change that maybe ends up seeing the McLarens at the top of the timing charts? We haven't yet seen that today, despite them being second and third in the driver standings. Thanos goes 5th, Fizzy only goes 3rd. He didn't find an improvement come the end of their lap, and that's what leads to them having to sit 3rd and 5th. However, Cohen 1/10 and a half up, big slide as they enter the stadium in a grand way. Whether or not that will help their bid to chase down pole here, we will find out now as they are heading up to the line. What will it be for Cohen? It will be a 15.4. It will only be 10th fastest, and that is his session over and done with. He's gone, you know what, that's as good as I've got. Then Cohen does end up backing out, so that could be a quali ban heading his way. You never know with these leagues, typically it is, but yeah, that is the first driver to actually retire on track here today. Vilvan not finding time. You've got Inferno Trap on an invalidated run on low fuel. So they will divert off into that pit lane. Pablo is on an out lap. Renz has just started a second installation lap by the looks. Currently ERS in none, just trying to do that track acclimatization program as if it's an in-game practice session. But those drivers have had a whole week to prepare themselves for this event. As after the first sector you can see 3.7 off. It's really not a push lap for Renz, but who could be entering a push lap now is Pablo in the Williams. They now work their way out of the stadium section. It's going to be full throttle from here on out. Battery up to overtake mode as they now try and blitz their way up towards turn 1, under all the bridges you need to go under between the start finisher line and turn 1. Where do they end up braking? You can see on that side they brake just after the 150, just so they can get that right rotation, so they bounce off the curbs kind of into one another simultaneously, as Pablo now works their way down up towards turn 4 now, as it's 3 tenths improvement for that Williams in the first part of the lap. Could be quick enough to try and sneak themselves in the top 8 if they can hold it where they are as of now, but naturally with the track evolution they will end up going quicker, and currently quicker is what Pablo is doing as they now go through the final part of the S's. DRS and battery being deployed. It's a good first 2 sectors, 6 tenths improvement. It's enough to maybe try and match Power Twan, maybe even Adam, if they can find those extra 2 or 3 tenths in the final part of this lap, as they now enter the final low speed corner and now the final official corner as they charge up to the line. What will it be? It will be a 14.7. A brilliant lap for Pablo, promotes him from P12 all the way up to your provisional pole slot. With 2 minutes left in this session, Renz is on a lap. Whether or not that Sauber can find the improvement needed, we will know in a few moments. They're 10th down and they've just invalidated. They've ended up going to lob themselves off into the wall in Ferrari fashion, as Vilvan will be the first driver to kickstart these end game runs, I like to call them, because it's the final minute and a half. This is where all the laps count. If you make a mistake, it's unfortunately going to be game over and could cost you some major points in the championship if you end up starting in the lower places as a repercussion. Anyways, Vilvan going through the first few corners now, keeping it all clean through the first part. It's usually easy to ace that, but then this area is where the main challenge starts to kick in. Track limits is so easily invalidated through the middle sector here in Mexico. They've managed to survive turns 4 and 5, 6 and in fact 7, as Pablo has now retired from this qualifying session. They've said the 14.7 is quick enough for them. Whether or not Adam and Power Twan can beat that, we still have a minute or so to find out, as after the middle sector, how is it looking for the Haas car? It's looking quite good. 3 tenths improvement as things stand. They just need another tenth or so to demote Renz down to P14, as I'm pretty sure Renz in his early dawn of league racing is probably quite familiar with those out of point starts, but then he's able to work himself back up as Vilvan that only goes to 14th place. Elite Silver just entering the castle section now. You do have 3 cars ahead, however it's just the easier option. A Shoot goes second with a 14.8. Fizzy does a 14.8. Hugo does a 15.1. Elite, however, does a 16.2, which is, to say at least, nowhere near as competitive. Burger Boy over the line. It'll be a 14.4 for the V car. The mega lap to possibly give them pole position, as we still have the likes of Adam and Twan yet to set a lap. Why Happy over the line? It will only be 12th for them. Their teammate, the next driver to meet us at the finish line, as they end up cutting that final corner, invalidating their run after a mistake which may cost them, as Adam has gone to second. Power Twan leaving that final corner. Have they got the time? They do have time to improve, but not enough time to go into the top 5. It will only be 6th for them. Inferno cutting those corners. Vilvan just doing some donuts out in Mexico, as that is qualifying done and dusted here today. But boy oh boy, that was not the easiest session for the drivers. The gap between 2nd and 7th just sitting above 3/10, which is absolutely insane to say the least. Whereas Burger Boy managed to swipe pole away in that last moment by a good 2/10.5. So it will be Burger Boy who fronts the grid, followed by Adam, then Pablo. As yeah, everyone just rounding off their sessions for the sake of Vilvan entering that pit lane to end their session. Probably rather time consuming, because you now actually have 39 seconds left on the automated in-game countdown. But yeah, that was a good session to say the least. There's so many drivers trading in that top spot, but as you can see there, Elite Silver only 15th for the man 7th in the championship. But here is your grid. It will be Burger Boy who lines up on pole. Adam gets a 5th place grid drop. That demotes him. Pablo will be 3rd, promoted to 2nd. Shoot 3rd, so on and so forth. Fizzy 5th. Power Twan 6th. Thanos 7th. Hugo in 8th. Laser, I believe, also has another 5th place. Yes, he does. He's going to be 9th qualified. Inferno Trap, Cone, Bear, Y Happy, Renz, Vilvan, Elite Silver, Master Gamer, then Kind Fuel, Renz. Also having that 5th place grid drop to be issued for the main race. But yeah, now the grid has finally been settled. It's time for the 17 drivers, I think it is, maybe even 16, to decide their final setup, make tweaks from the base qualifying one they've used. Whether or not Parc Fermé is on or not, they do have a chance to change certain aspects of the car to really suit their liking. But we will find out how these drivers end up coping across 36 laps rather than one fast-paced qualifying lap, because that is what's up next after these drivers have finalised their strategies. But currently, in terms of your constructors, it's McLaren who leads it on 90 points, followed by Red Bull on 81, then it's Ferrari on 79, Sauber and Alpine both tied for 4th on 69 points. Racing Bulls hold 54 to their own disposal, Haas on 48, Mercedes 45, Aston Martin 17 and Williams on 4 as 5 lights are up and the lights are gone, and away we go here. Burger Boy gets a good start. You can see Pablo slightly twitching that front end as they just choose to slot in behind the RB, as it's going to be a drag race all the way up to turn 1. It's going to be Pablo on the outside rather than his inside based start slot. As they go through 2nd and now 3rd corner, it's going to be Shoot who squeezes their way past the Williams, who hasn't had the best of starts to say the least. And now Burger Boy just has to try and defend up to the next corner, which the V-Car will do so, as Shoot having a big snap of oversteer there. Whether or not he was clipped from behind, who knows, as he does end up pushing Fizzy off there, with Adam trying to go round the long way against Twan, which I believe the Haas has done so. They're still will to will. That has now been decided between two, as it will be Burger Boy who leads, as there's a big moment there. Inferno Trap has gone round, quickly reset to track. No one will notice is what he believes, as Burger Boy has just completely blitzed the field on this opening lap. As you can see what tyres the drivers are starting on. It's a fairly even split. Most drivers on the mediums, however, with those on the hards as well. So it does look like a 2 strategy running. But whether or not the hard compound strat will work better than mediums, We still have 35 laps to discover that, as there's Fizzy, who looked to the inside for turn 1, didn't manage to try and make a move stick or make a lunge, but now they will get another run up towards turn 4. They're already peeling alongside, trying to find that way past the Ferrari. To the inside they will go. Space has been provided by Shoot. Whether or not Fizzy will invite himself through that door, he will not. He's going to be a bit more patient and actually wait for the invitation to be slammed right in his face, as there goes Fizzy looking to the inside again, panelling back behind, as just a bit further back was Thanos defending against Hugo, who's starting to try and go up into P7. Yes, some cheeky wordplay just to try and keep this interesting, but anyways, there is Pablo going rather wide. That's now given Adam a chance to find the long way round. In fact, he will try and switch back as they duel through the arena, but it'll be Pablo who leads them, Power Twan in 5th and Adam 6th, so the Red Bull has seized an opportunity and taken it. But now DRS up towards turn 1, Power Twan will just breeze past Pablo, and Adam will take it as an opportunity to follow on and even try and go for a move back on Power Twan. Goes to the inside, and that is now P4 for the Haas. What it could have been a few corners earlier is what it is now, but it's not fully over there as Fizzy looks to the inside for Shoot. He's going to make the lunge, and it's an absolute best sector 1 for that McLaren driver as well, as they go dueling through turns 4 and 5. It's been settled before turn 6, and it'll be Fizzy that leads the Ferrari away here in the circuit de Hermanos Rodriguez, based in Mexico City, in of course Mexico. It's in its name, ain't it? But now this is where the DRS train starts to form. Burger Boy has already checked out of this race 3 seconds up the road from Fizzy in that McLaren, but that fighting's done as Renz has got past Hugo. Hugo had a moment there trying to defend against a laser on the outside of that stadium, as Adam sets your fastest lap of the race. Whether or not that Haas is in touching distance for move, I don't think he is, but who is Shoot, as that Ferrari slots past back up into P2, and we'll get a double dose regarding it's a double detection point here. So usually in Mexico it is double danger, and therefore Shoot uses this opportunity just to try and peel away from their opponent in that McLaren, and then drop through the gears, work their way through the middle part of the lap. And you can just see Burger Boy, I think now at a stage where he's like, you know what, I'll start managing those tyres. I know that I've got a comfortable advantage of 3 seconds. I'm already outside the typical undercut range, but now it's whether or not I can take those tyres to the halfway distance and then go on to the hards to the end, as there's Shoot, who's just guiding this whole train along. As you can see, it's a mighty old train. It goes all the way down to P12 in that Haas car. Then Kind Fuel very kindly just saying, nope, I'm not going to have any of that, as Adam has already pitted in this race. A rather interesting move for that Haas car. They're only on the 4th lap, and that's the Haas diverting off track as Fizzy overtakes Shoot for P2. Nicely does it, but there's a laser to the inside of Hugo. Hugo really opted to try and squeeze out, which they did so, caused that contact which almost sent laser round, and granted Why Happy into P9, which probably would have made him quite happy, not having the best of qualifyings here in Mexico, being only about 12th on your grid, but promoted to, I think it was 10th, due to the grid drop penalties. As now we just wait for someone else to try and make a move on one of their rivals. Remember, those on mediums, they're going to be quicker now, but in long run maybe not as much, as Why Happy has had a moment in that Mercedes. They are round and now rejoining the action I think there could have been contact somewhere, but if not, then that is a dreadful mistake, which really will be removing any form of smile from their faces. Up towards turn 1, these two will go. The Ferrari versus McLaren. We've seen this fight since lap 1. It's going to be shoot to the inside and promote themselves back up to P2, but Power Twan, the championship leader, onto the podium now. He saw the opportunity against Fizzy when he didn't have DRS and executed Order Red Bull. As now that is Power Twan into P3. He will try and close up to the back of Shoot after setting an absolute best sector 1 of this race as well, a 10th and a half up from what they've previously been able to do here today. As yellow flags out on track, it looks like a moment for Laser and Renz. Elite has got 3 seconds. He'll be the first driver to do so, as there's Laser spinning round on the exit of turn 7. There's Elite going by. The Alpine now going back underway. Very unfortunate for that Alpine driver. A fairly awkward mistake to make in that corner, I want to say. It's not typical, but who has had another moment is Why Happy. They've ended up finding Rule and now lost a chunk of their front wing here today. So that Mercedes will probably be on their way to the pit, as they're just going to have to try and avoid a collision course now, as there was Power Twan just getting the move done on Shoot. That has now put the Red Bull up into P2, as they are starting to chime in to the race once again. You can see the mediums are getting weaker as Fizzy has dropped out of DRS range of these two, and Power Twan and Shoot very much working their way up to the back of Burger Boy quite nicely. The gap was 3 seconds at the start of lap 5, and now it's only 1.6, make it 1.5 between Power and Burger Boy. But that V-Carb just going to be doing all they can to try and keep their hopes intact between now and the end of their stint, which I'd assume is going to come around lap 12. So then it gives them about 20 or so laps on those hards, 24 laps to be exact, but it gives them that nice opportunity, nice caveat to look after those hards in that inaugural stage. As Renz has gone off, they've now just rejoined, as we can see there, but most importantly, Shoot, DRS range on Power Twan. The Ferrari has overtaken Fizzy many a times into turn 1 and will overtake Power into turn 1 as well. And that's the Red Bull now down to 3rd. Ignore the helicopter in the background, just a local to the police station, as that is Shoot up to 2nd. And now finally Burger Boy has got some competition. He's now in DRS range, or has 2 cars with DRS on him, those of course being Shoot and Power. Let's see how difficult the RB is going to end up making it, as they go through those S's now. That RB fighting that car through the earlier stages. DRS now going to come into play for that Ferrari. They know they're a bit too far back as they enter the staging now. You can just see that Ferrari up in the big screens all over that grandstand, just getting a lovely shot of this battle as it's starting to kick off. The Ferrari now going to be getting some DRS up towards turn 1. They will even use their battery now as they close up to the outside. They will go off Burger Boy, and that is finally one of the drivers on the hard compounder tyres in the lead. The mediums really do look like they have lost all of their sting in it, as there was Pablo getting a move done on Thanos quite nicely. That not being too difficult of a move for the Williams car, which has promoted them up into P5 in this race. As, yeah, we are just going to go back to the leading fighters. Renz is in the pit, putting on a set of softs in this race. I I think their plan is just to try and take it 5 or so laps and then pit for the hards and take them to the end. Basically turn what would have been a 1-stop into a 2-stop whilst doing the same mileage on the hard compounded tyres, which is fairly clever to say the least. But you can see slowly those mediums dropping off as Renz has had a spin in that first corner. The moment he comes out of pit lane is the moment they drop the ball again, and Shoot has now checked out from Burger Boy. 1.4 seconds between the Ferrari and the RB. There's Power overtaking that RB quite easily in a straight line, just so much more top speed with that rear wing wide open. Thanos to the inside of Pablo, and that's the McLaren also up to P4 as Fizzy has gone to the pits in that McLaren. Yellow flags kind of all over the track as Adam is now limping into the pit lane after having a spin and picking up some damage of their own. That is the Haas cars race over and done with. They know that it was kind of screwed over from the moment that they got that wing damage only about 30 seconds ago. But now 16 drivers are left here today, and we are only on the 10th lap of 36 here in Mexico, as now the running is going to start getting fairly competitive as Renz 3-second time penalty for multiple track limits penalties. The top two not too far away from Renz as he's got 10 seconds for speeding into the pit lane. He's only been on those tyres 1 lap. It will be a DNF as Shoot now has to try and defend Power. He's had the assistance of DRS before as Burger Boy into the pits. The Red Bull just not able to get close enough on the run up to turn 1. There will be no move made as of now. So therefore Shoot just works their way through the chicane as there's a yellow flag for the Haas of Adam, who retired only a lap or so ago. As there's Power just closing in again. That Red Bull starting to home on to Shoot like it is a homing missile. But now this is where the strategies are going to start kicking in. Of course, those medium runners all migrating onto the hards as they are now the favourable tyre, and that's probably what their pit window does tell them, yeah, as the advised stop lap. But for the hard compound runners, they're going to be thinking, how long can I extend this? Because the longer they can of course extend it, the more likely they can meet the rest of the field with a 1-stop and try and outclass them that way, as Elite Silver gets a further 3-second track limit penalty for multiple warnings. As up towards turn 1 they are going to go. Whether or not Power can overtake Shoot this time doesn't look it, but they are much closer going under braking for turn 1 than they were a lap ago here today. Shoot just has to continue their defensive work as Power is going to get DRS. They won't choose to use battery because they know there's a much better overtaking opportunity, but rear locking for the Red Bull. They've kept it all under wraps as they now try and stay as close as possible to that Ferrari. Those hards of course going to start bearing out and degrading in this race. They've been on for 11 racing laps as this is your 12th lap of the race. Power's just going to have to use all their racing skill. Remember, the Red Bull, of course, your championship leader entering this race, and not like it's by a small margin. It's by a fairly lengthy championship stand, if I'm right. Yeah, it's in fact 22 points between Power Twan and Thanos, who's second place man. Shoot being 24 points of the Red Bull in this championship, as Kindfield has now got 3 seconds for track limit. That's the Red Bull going through those S's. Pablo and Thanos both in the pits. That's going to be yeah. But now Power going through the middle sector, still stuck in behind that Ferrari, just waiting for an opportunity to open up, and it really hasn't came around yet for the fight. But yeah, now I think those drivers could be considering the pit stop, as yeah, they are really just in a stalemate. You can see Power Twang closing in with that DRS, but never getting close enough to actually go and execute pass on the Ferrari. But now Hugo has got 3 seconds for track limits as well. But yeah, you can just see how difficult it really has been to manage a overtake here today, because it's such a high altitude circuit. The effect of DRS doesn't come too usefully, as Master Gamer is caught up in this massive 4-way squabble. There's a laser on the inside of Hugo, as the laser going around the outside on the exit of turn 5. They'll go through turn 6 and 7, still fighting it out, but it'll be Hugo who just asserts their dominance and sits in P6 for the time being. As now Laser Gun trying to use DRS as they work their way down to the final sector. They'll have DRS in a few corners time, as yellow flags are starting to be waved for, I believe it's the other Alpine of Cohen, who's slowly dropping through that field, as Kindfield, the first of the drivers to start on the hard compounds, to go for a pit stop here today, as that could be an indication to the others that the 2-stop is the more favourable strategy, as there is a Laser Gun closing in to Hugo, trying to find a way by, just unable to do so, with Master Gamer very much sitting there somewhat impatiently, waiting for the time to be right to try and overtake the Alpine. But the Alpine doing a rather stellar job at keeping with the Sauber car. Of course, they are tied in terms of your constructor standings. As things stand, they'll be split up, but based off how these two drivers finish, because Cohen being a lap down all the way down to, I want to say it's 10th as things stand, and then Renz also being out of this race in that Sauber, meaning one Sauber's really left in contention, as Power is in the box. You can see they're leaving the pit lane now, Inferno continuing on, but I think that is Power very much taking the hint in this race, as Fizzy comes out ahead of the Red Bull. The McLaren has successfully undercut them, but a bit further back, Thanos overtaking Master Gamer. That's the McLaren back up into P7. They're just working their way through the field. They've gone 2 moves in one straight, with a move on Laser once again. And now Thanos can try and hunt down Hugo, who is only 1.2 seconds up. And that's just closing, as there's a yellow flag out on track. It is Why Happy, who's had a moment in that final corner with Shoot going through the stadium now. Do the Ferrari go, you know what, it's time to pit? Or do they try and go for the long ball? Do they try and do the 1-stop? The Ferrari's committing. They know that they've been undercut by Power and Fizzy. As I don't know whether or not Low Taper Fade meme is still alive to this day, Rodrigo, but for you it probably is, because your meme sense is quite poor. A bit like the showcase from Why Happy here today. It's been a tough day to say the least. It was P10 in qualifying, usually not their typical self. Of course, I've commentated numerous times for him and he's shown so much potential in his league racing, but then he's made so many mistakes, as there's Thanos to the inside of Hugo and up into P5. But yeah, for Why Happy, it's just not been the best day in the office, and hopefully in the following event that I commentate for them, they end up finding some form once again. But this is probably only a 2-week stint, as SRL is going to be back on the weekend commencing of the 6th for their Champions Division and Elite Division, hopefully. But Thanos going through the S's. Why Happy has retired. He's just put a nail in his coffin. He's gone, you know what, it's gone so wrong, I just don't think I can bear it any longer. But anyways, you have Shoot in the lead at the moment, still going on. It's 17 laps on those hards. Inferno Trap also on the hards, but does Inferno play the team game? Of course, they've gave Power that DRS, so it will be a fairly easy move. Power just goes straight past Inferno. Looks like they did just drop off that throttle, but Inferno clearly hasn't got the team orders rule. I think it was an illegal overtake due to the placement of Why Happy, and therefore the switch will have to be done once again into the next corner. You can see there's Inferno just peeling to the outside, kind of boxing that McLaren in, as Fizzy goes the long way round, as Inferno locks those rears just to get a rotation and really try and block up as much of the road as possibly can. But for the sake of Inferno, amazing defence in that Red Bull, and that is now Power Twan up into P2 and set off to hunt down the Ferrari that currently leads, as yellow flag out on track for Vilven, who has now just been overtaken by Kind Fuel, who I believe served a quali ban here today due to retiring at the very beginning, as Fizzy has just overtaken Inferno, but retired at the very start and hasn't really found the easiest of ways through the field today, as Shoot still is on those hards and it's now beyond the halfway stage. I think they are definitely looking at that one stop going, it's very tempting, but is it worth the gamble? Because Power Twan very much within DRS, well, very much within that pit stop window, so any stop now will really shoot him in the foot more than anything. But for the sake of Power, he went about 11 laps, or well, he went 13 laps on those hards. He'll probably pit around lap 26 for new set. If those calculations are correct, of course, Power started on those hards, meaning he will have to pit once again, fully committing himself to that 2-stop strategy. But most of these drivers have gone for that traditional hard compound to hard compound and gone, you know what, the 2-stop is the way to go here today. But now Fizzy, can they try and keep intact with Power? I don't think so. Power's already 4 seconds up the road, so that's a rather silly question for me to ask. No way did the GOAT say that the low taper fade is still massive. The 6-7 god is probably Rodrigo now thinking of it. As Kind Fuel in P9, but this is the second day in a row where they end up just glazing Rodrigo. But yeah. Anyways, that's enough of my Game Theorist episode here today, and back to the Formula Elite Racing event, where it's of course round 5 of this championship season. McLaren currently hold the upper hand in constructors by 9 points over Red Bull, but Power Twan has a mighty 22 point advantage in the drivers, over the likes of Thanos and Fizzy, who are both joint on 22 points, not 22, 42 points in the McLaren. As you can of course see Kind Fuel and Vilvan just going through this middle part of the lap. They are really not fighting too much, but of course those mediums going to be a bit more worn down than the hard compound tyres. Of course 3 laps tyre delta in it between them, as Kind Fuel just still working their way around. They've got Vilvan tucked in behind as Thanos has overtaken Inferno, but shoot, very much going for that one stop. They're on 20 laps with those hards. As up towards turn 1 we will go. May we finally see some fighting between the Haas and the V-Carb. Vilvan doing all they can in their power to get within DRS range, just not coming around, as they have now caught up with Master Gamer in the Mercedes, who has 20 laps on those hard compounded tyres, whereas LeBron, Jesus Christ, has Vilvan in P9, still trying to look for a way around. The way you both spell LeBron wrong, it's just comical at this point. It's Eddie, but okay. As the Haas starting to get a bit dicey on those curves, you can see that the car starting to step out when they try and jump between those curves. But now through turn 12 or whatever. What? I still love Rodrigo and 6-7 God just flirting with each other in this chat, as they usually do as of last day or so, as Master Gamer has finally opted to pit. That is 21 laps on those hards out the window. Laser gun, fastest lap of the race, a 118.0. They're currently only sitting in P10 however, meaning there's quite a way for them to run in this race. You've also got Power Twan now just under 6 seconds from shoot. And yeah, now you can see there's the Red Bull going through that hairpin as shoot tries to evacuate that stadium as quick as possible. Into the pits they will come. They've gone, you know what, 14 laps I think is doable on those hards, which I do agree with, as now Power Twan will become your race leader here today, the Red Bull on the charge, whereas Fizzy and Thanos working their way down back straight now, or main straight, as they will go up to P2 and P3. Just a bit further back is Pablo going by, and there is Shoot leaving that pit lane. Inferno has came out quite close to Shoot, but Inferno still yet to pit, the only driver who's not pitted in this race so far, as Thanos versus Fizzy is about to start heating up. Fizzy's gone for the team game and has let Thanos pass, as, yeah, what a good teammate would do. Maybe not as much Rodrigo and Fed in CRL Legends Div the other week. But anyways, Thanos going to try and hunt down Power to see if McLaren can extend their advantage over Red Bull in this championship. They're already outscoring them as things stand, but they just want that extra solidation in their titles, as Fizzy staying quite nicely to the back of Thanos. So the two McLarens maybe just experimenting and testing the water, seeing if Fizzy is actually so much slower that Thanos can pull away. I don't fully know, Rodrigo. Looks like just a bunch of brain rot, which is your community, as Fizzy is just staying in DRS range. I'm Harry 6-7 God. But yeah, there's Kind Fuel, who has gone past Inferno after Inferno has gone to the pit lane. but the two McLarens still out on track and doing a fairly nice formation as Master Gamer sets your fastest lap on those medium compounder tyres. They've got all the push left. Hello 6-7 God. As Thanos going through the S's with their teammate just following along. DRS now coming into play for Fizzy. Whether or not he will be able to push themselves up into P2, they probably won't, regarding they made the overtake so easy for Thanos in the first case. I don't think they'd naturally want to try and fight him back. Yes, Master Gamer is who you think he is. As now Fizzy, DRS once again, they're going to try and close in, but the Shoot has set your fastest lap, who is just behind Pablo in that Ferrari. They're closing in without DRS, but of course 2-lap-old mediums versus 12-lap-old hards. It's like comparing a rookie, well, a rookie to an experienced driver in a sense. Slow versus quick, as there's Shoot up into P4 and Pablo down to P5 in that Williams, which is still a good place for Williams, regarding they've only scored 4 points in this whole championship so far. As, yeah, at the moment, yeah, it's going to be Pablo that doubles Williams' points tally in just one race as things stand. Fizzy gets 3 seconds for track limit infringement, as now Shoot can very much try and hunt down the two McLarens. Maybe they knew what was coming with the Ferrari, so they chose to swap those places, just to mean Thanos has the greatest chance of pushing away in this race. But does Thanos go for that 2-stop? Or does he stay with the traditional 1-stop, which Shoot is aiming to complete? As Cohen in the pit. I don't know what's dragging this Alpine to continue racing. They are almost 2 laps down here today. I believe they're in fact 2 laps down actually. They're over a lap down from Vilvan and coming back round to that Haas car. So yeah, it could be for the hope that if 3 more drivers miraculously DNF, he does score that 1 point. Otherwise, it's just a practice session for Cohen. Whereas for these others, it is more pure merit they are trying to race for. Currently with Shoot now right up behind Fizzy. Can the Ferrari try and break their way into the top 3 of this race now? Track limits there. They're going to use DRS, go to the inside. There's the silver McLaren, as Shoot does a very good job at giving as much space as possible on the outside of that exit. And that Shoot up into P3. That is 1 McLaren down. How quickly will they seize the assassination of Thanos' top 2 hopes here today? As they won't get DRS up towards turn 1, meaning they will have to wait at least 1 more lap. But who has ended up getting DRS on a McLaren is in fact Pablo in that Williams, who is only on 3 lap younger hard compound tyres than Fizzy is. So we could see a little interaction between those two, as Shoot is just closing in, homing on to their target, as Thanos starting to look a bit more uncertain about their position, with Shoot just closing in like it's nothing in this race. But now, Shoot is going to have DRS in this upcoming DRS zone. Whether or not they do the same thing in which they did to Fizzy on the previous lap doesn't look it. They're way too far back. So they will try and take the opportunity to strike up towards turn 1. As they are now coming out of the stadium, you can see that lovely shot as they go under that grandstand and start to charge up towards turn 1 now. Shoot versus Thanos. Will Thanos be able to hang on in this first attack? by the Ferrari. They'll peel to the outside. They will walk through the door that was left open, and that's shoot up into P2. As let's say the least, the McLaren has very much shot himself in the foot there with trying to just hold his ground, as 15 lap old hards really does not last against 5 lap old mediums. But now we have got less than 8 laps left in this race. It could be rather convincing for Thanos to try and go to the end. Whether or not Power tries to run that risk as well, only time will tell, cause those hards are going to start looking quite dead come the end of it. But I do believe that Power did start on those hard compounder tyres. If so, there's going to be one more pit stop in store for that Red Bull car, as that pit stop is not coming as of yet. But you have got 2 drivers racing, even though Elite Silver is now a lap down. It's going to be Power using DRS to try and find a way back to unlap themselves from your race leader. The Ferrari, I think, is just going to try and pace themselves, because it does look like Power is going to have that pace to work their way up to the rest of the field. Those fresh tyres will help them quite dearly. But anyways, that is your main bulk of action over and done, to say the least. But Inferno versus Kind Fuel, we saw this fight a fair while earlier on, probably around lap 8 or whatever, but it's going to be Inferno who strikes back on those newer mediums to the inside and straight up into P7. No point knocking twice. You can only knock on that door once and get an invite in when it comes to racing against Kind Fuel. They're a fairly nice driver in that sense, but everyone does want to finish as high as possible, and they can really only finish when they're fighting drivers that they can keep up with. Not calling Kind Fuel slow or anything, but it is due to that tyre delta. Inferno 9 lap younger mediums than their hard compounder tyres. Another good way to compare it is a young man, like 20 odd, trying to box a 70-year-old. It really does not work out for that 70-year-old, but that's a very awkward comparison, I'll say the least. As now Thanos is still hanging quite nicely with Shoot, as Shoot is trying all they can to close in with Power Twan. The Red Bull still on a lap, as I think that Ferrari is going to be your favourite to win. The Red Bull, however, just going to have to try and play their cards right. They'll have to try and go as long as they can in this race to give them that golden opportunity, as Laser has gone for your fastest lap once again. It's a 16.878 for the Alpine driver. Unfortunately for Alpine, no car zone points until now, as Laser Gun just overtook Vilvan, which we were not viewing at that moment. But that is fair play for the Alpine. That's them now up into P10, as it's starting to rain here in Mexico. You can see on the front bonnet, and you can in fact see on the offset camera, that the rain drops are starting to land here in Mexico. A fairly humid place does cause quite a bit of downpour across an average year, but could this be where all plays right for the likes of Power Twan and Thanos? Because now, as long as they go to the inters, they should be fine to make it to the end. But will it get heavy enough to go to the end? As that's about the 3rd Rodrigo I've seen this event in chat. But hi, as Thanos in P3 just going to be biding their time, as that's a very butchered spelling of no way. But Thanos 8/10 back from Shoot. That Ferrari now just waiting more than ever for the course to go over to the inters. as that is definitely Rodrigo's spelling and language. But anyways, Thanos is going to just stay within DRS range this time round. But into the pits has came Pablo in that Williams. It'll be interesting to see what the Williams team have got out for them, as it's going to be intermediates. I thought it was a bit early, but lap 32 of 36 and the intermediates have already came out for the Williams driver, as they now end up racing Hugo out of the pit lane. Not really a race anymore, as Hugo has promoted themselves up into P5, which is a place he usually doesn't go in this race, as Inferno has in fact joined the Williams on the intermediate compounds. It does look like a fairly favourable option. Vilvan in the pit lane now, won't be surprised if they even go and join them all on those intermediates, make it into a mini party. As now through the left into the right hander, as Pablo really looking quite comfortable on those inters. It looks so much more racy than Hugo on those hard compounded tyres. Could end up seeing a change in the positions for P5 once again. Hugo only took that place at the start of this lap on the run up to turn 1, and now Pablo has got the next place. This is not my account on my lap. Okay. As Hugo now has got that pressure starting to pile on, as Pau, Tuan and Fizzy have in fact gone to the intermediates. The man who was leading here today has opted for it, as there's Hugo who now dives into the pit lane. Pablo into P5, Pau, Tuan however in P3, and has got to try and hunt down these two. Thanos now knows that this is the fight for the win. It wasn't a fight for a second. It's now for P1. The place everyone wants to bag here in Mexico. But now that McLaren is going to try and use their tyres to their advantage, because at this stage, with 20 lap old hards, 10 lap old mediums is kind of just saying the same thing. They're both burned down to the wire. It'll be a matter of fact who can use those tyres better as to whether or not they will be able to swap places. But now it's lap 33, about to enter lap 34, and the gap in the top 3 is 5.3 seconds, and that's now dropped to just under 5 seconds. Pau Tuan finding quite a bit of time with ease. Whether or not Thanos does get DRS on the run up to turn 1, we will find out in a moment. Yes, he will. So it's not actually intermediates, but, well, it's not intermediates as the FIA deems it to be dry enough for DRS to be used safely, as there's Thanos completely rally driving that car through turn 1 and 2, as Pau Tuan has already dropped that gap by another second. That Red Bull starting to loom even closer in the background, as there's going to be Thanos to the inside of Shoot. Is that going to be Thanos up to P2? As now that's the 4th Rodrigo I've seen in this race, as I feel like there's a bit of mockery coming on here in this chat, as Thanos sits in P2, not able to overtake Shoot as of yet. As now Rodrigo, why are you saying where you from? You're trying to really act like you aren't the same guy. But anyways, Pau Tuan, he was 4 seconds off at the start of this lap, and up into P2. As now Pau Tuan very much going to make his life rather easy against Shoot. He has 2 laps to overtake that Ferrari. They're going to see the door open to the inside and go for it. Bit of wheel barging there, but Pau Tuan up into your race lead, and Shoot will be racing up towards turn 1 against Thanos this time. Will Thanos be able to finally promote themselves up into the higher place and pass that Ferrari to the inside? They're going to go, as DRS is now disabled in this race. Shoot going to try and squeeze out Thanos as much as possible, but he will just go around the outside in turn 2, and walk himself up into that second place position, as now these spellings are just getting even more butchered by the minute, as Thanos P2 shoot P3, but Power Twan has managed to execute the strategy to perfection. Didn't need to use those medium compounder tires, just had to manage those hards to the adequate distance. But irrespective of that, the fight still goes on for second place. Shoot versus Thanos. It really does look like the tides have changed in the favour for the McLarens here today. But there's the McLaren who's gone nice and wide through the right-hander. But now will Shoot be able to go for move up towards turn 1, as there's Elite who's lapped, overtaking both the drivers in second and third, really just showing how slow they truly are on those dry compounds in these conditions. As Shoot has now dropped out of that beloved 1 second, which has been utilised so many times this race to use DRS and overtake into turn 1. As now there's Thanos, big slide going out of turn 3. These two now have Pablo starting to limp into distance. He's 5 seconds back from these two. Could the Williams maybe even storm in and steal a podium from one of these two drivers, as that gap now drops to less than 3 seconds within about 2 corners? It's going to be Pablo who's on the hunt now. There's Shoot right in front of him. The gap about to creep within a second. It is absolutely plummeting, as now Pablo goes for a move on Shoot. He's going to tap the back of Ferrari and then go straight down the inside as Shoot tries closing the door, cuts that runoff and ignores it exist, as it will be Power Twan who leaves the final corner to win here in Mexico. The Red Bull weathers the storm, but it will be Pablo who makes a move as they enter the stadium to put that Williams up into P2 here today. As now through the final corner they go, up to the line. It will be Pablo who comes P2, Thanos will be P3, and Fizzy will beat Thanos to the line, but will get demoted due to penalties, as Fizzy will be 5th, Thanos will get 3rd, Shoot 4th. Then it's going to be Hugo in the Sauber who's rounding out that final corner to take 6th and promote the Sauber team up to 4th in the championship for good, rather than just tied with points. As that is Hugo in P6, Inferno P7, Kind Fuel takes P8, Laser P9, Vilvan rounding out that final corner to be in P10, and then P11 just outside the points is the Mercedes, who is in, I believe it's about 7th in the championship, who comes home P11. Not an easy day at all for the constructors, on 45 points, trailing Haas and Racing Bulls in the fight by less than 9 points. But irrespective of that, it will be Power Twan who steps onto the top step here in Mexico. He wins with the fastest lap going to Laser, driver of the day being Kind Fuel. Always nice to see that. And then Inferno being the driver with most overtakes, and Power Twan, quote unquote, your cleanest driver. It's however Power Twan, then Pablo, Thanos in 3rd, Shoot 4th, Fizzy 5th, Hugo in 6th, Inferno 7th, Kind Fuel in 8th, Laser 9th, Vilvan 10th, Master Gamer 11th, Elite Silver 12th, Cohen 13th. Then it's Why Happy, Burger Boy, Renz and Adam who all failed to finish here today. But for now, that's been me. I hope you guys all enjoyed, and I'll see you all later. Goodbye.